In my fantasy league, I had the 8th pick.
The tough spot to pick this year.
It was a tough spot.
Yep.
I took Ezekiel Elliott.
Okay.
Well, why is that the reaction?
You don't even need to finish the question, Greeny.
Was that a bad pick? I mean, no one said at the time that was a bad pick.
Absolutely
My son
not.
actually said to me, wow, he was still there at 8? Like that. That was the reaction I got in the moment.
Right.
And then in the first game, I've got Dominique Foxworth telling me what a great job he did in picking up the pass rush and how that might be his most important role this year. And my reaction to that was twofold, Matthew. One, that's not why Jerry Jones gave him tens of millions of dollars. And more importantly, it damn sure isn't why I picked him 8th in my fantasy league. So please tell me that this is not the way the season is going to go.
Yeah, things are going to go better. Like he's still a guy that played almost 70% of the snaps in this game. And you think about how that game played out, right? I mean, I feel like this was a function of Mike McCarthy and his staff looking at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, one of, if not the best defensive line in football, and saying, like, you know what? Instead of wasting it down and sending Zeke Elliott in there, and now we're looking at 2nd and 8 instead of 1st and 10. Let's try to attack the edges. Let's try to, Tony Pollard's a little speedier. Let's try to attack the edges. Let's try to attack the secondary. And by the way, it worked. If Greg Zuerlein hits a couple of field goals, they win that game. I mean, so like they should have won that game. Honestly, the Cowboys should have.
Yeah.
And the fact that they didn't was based on special teams and defense, not on the offense. The offense was great. Dak looked great. So it all worked to perfection. The idea that all of a sudden now that's what they're going to be every single week, I think is silly. I agree with you, Greeny, in that Jerry Jones has more control over that franchise than most owners do. You know, he's also, in fact, basically their general manager. And, like, Jerry's going to sit there and be like, I'm not paying this guy $90 million or whatever it is they pay Ezekiel Elliott, for him to pick up the pass rush. He's going to get run. He's going to be fine. I said this on my show, on the podcast that I do with Field Yates every morning. I said, if you were in my fantasy league and you have Ezekiel Elliott, trade him to me. Call me up and make an offer because I want him. There's a very finite amount of running backs that get the majority of their team's carries. Ezekiel Elliott is one of them, and it happens to be on one of the best offenses in football. He's not the first, and nor will he be the last running back to struggle against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers run defense.
Now, 29 players had more touches in week 1 than he did with just 13, but I'm counting on you. This is why I need you here, Barry, because you make me feel better. Okay, so they typed up a whole bunch of questions for me, and I'm ignoring them. Here's what I want.
Let's
go. Because you do the podcast every single day. You know better than anybody what the most important things are. So as we head into week 2, and, of course, the podcast Fantasy Focus Football with Field and Barry and all the whole crew, what are the most important things that the fans who are interested in fantasy football need to know as we work our way towards week 2? Take the floor.
Well, I think it's the San Francisco running back situation. That's the biggest question that I think is going on. So Raheem Mostert, unfortunately, yesterday announces he's going to be shut down for the season. He's going to get the surgery, so he's going to be shut down for the season. And this was a big story in the world of fantasy football because all throughout camp, all the reporting had been that the backup to Raheem Mostert was Trey Sermon, their talented rookie, 3rd-round draft pick out of Ohio State. And what happened on game day was that he was actually a healthy and active, and that Elijah Mitchell, a 6th-round rookie, ended up being the backup along with JaMychal Hasty, who's been on the team for a little while. And so those 3 guys were the guys that were active, and in a game against Detroit, Raheem Mostert gets injured fairly early, and Elijah Mitchell just goes absolutely crazy, bonkers. And so people are wondering, what do we do now with the 49ers backfield, given that Raheem Mostert is out for the year? Because, to be honest, like whoever the running back is of the San Francisco 49ers has a lot of fantasy value. That is a team that is top 4 in the NFL in terms of fantasy points from their running back position over the last 2 years. It's a great offensive line. Kyle Shanahan is a great play caller, especially with the run game. And so people are like, do I drop Trey Sermon? Do I have to, spend all of my fab money or my number 1 waiver pick on Elijah Mitchell, which ran waivers and went this morning? And I think the answer is somewhere in the middle. Like, they still have Jeff Wilson Jr. out there. They like to use multiple backs. They always like to dress 3 backs. Mitchell and Hasty play special teams, which is probably why they dressed, and Sermon didn't. But I also think they were trying to send a message to Sermon. My expectation is that on Sunday I will have Elijah Mitchell ranked the highest of any of the running backs. But I certainly would not drop Trey Sermon. And in fact, if you could trade for him cheap, I do think he has a role in this offense. They use multiple running backs, and I think this offense is good enough that multiple running backs in fantasy can be relevant for the 49ers. And I think by the end of the year, we're going to be looking at Mitchell and Trey Sermon as both having really good fantasy years.
Thank you for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.